I'm dirt.
And welcome to my review for Possessors, or Possess parentheses S, by developer Heart Machine. Possessors is a sci-fi search action horror drama game where you play as the protagonist Luca and her demonic counterpart Rem, who get caught up in each other's lives through unfortunate circumstances, and one of them is trying to get back home and the other is just trying to find her family. Together the two have to overcome the odds. The Agnadyne Corp, I believe it was called, or Agadyne Corp. They're pretty much kind of like Umbrella from Resident Evil, but with batteries. And with that, our story is set. Now we're going to start with the first category. Each category is rated in a 1 out of 10, except for the fun factor, which is 1 out of 10 times 3. And we're going to start with the controls of the game. I put a 9 out of 10 for the controls. The controls are extremely tight and extremely precise. The platforming feels really good. There was just like 1 or 2 spots where there was some like weirdness. Essentially, when you would use one item called the baseball, you could aim the baseball before you throw it. So you would hold the button to throw the baseball and then press up or down. And then sometimes while you're charging the ball, a different move would come out. Like if you had like up plus a button and you wanted to aim the ball up, your up attack would come out instead of continuing to charge the ball. So I don't know if that was just me doing something wrong or what, but that was a little annoying because I used the baseball like religiously as soon as I got it. I was like, ooh, ranged option. So I kind of played her like a Smash character. I put my baseball in my neutral. Okay, don't even need to talk about that. So that was one issue I had with the controls. And then sometimes the whip would just like be a little hard to aim. And I get that that's kind of like, you know, a 8-directional issue. You know, you can't really do too much about that. But it was still kind of annoying when you're trying to platform and reach a door. And then like, oh, I missed this whip spot because I was like right over it. But the whip went slightly perpendicular to the whip point and now I'm going to fall. But again, like 9 out of 10 is still not bad. These are two tiny little grievances. The controls are solid. Next up is level design. I'm giving the level design in this game an 8 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's usually pretty strong. There are some weird decisions with save points and fast travel points. Sometimes they're generous, other times sparse. You could argue that since the fast travel points are train stations, it wouldn't always be applicable for them to be in certain spots. So you can say that that goes against the creator's vision, and no one could go against that because that's what the Hollow Knight people say about their benches, and nobody gives them any problems. So I'm going to actually give the creator some slack here and say, yeah, I guess you wouldn't find a train station at the bottom of an aquarium. But regardless, you might have wanted to figure out a way to get those fast travel points in there organically. Save points too. Sometimes you'd have like one in a room right next to the other one, and then there'll be times where you'll go through like 5, 6, 7 rooms, gigantic rooms, and there's just no save point. It's just like, shit, bastard. So that was kind of annoying. The map is big though, and even though the fast travel points aren't great, if there's something I happen to really notice, it's that even when areas looked very far away, Luca would still reach them rather quick. I was never running for more than like 2 or 3 minutes without either finding a fast travel or a save or whatever it was I was looking for. I was never running and running and running. No matter how big a room was, it always felt like you got through it pretty quickly. Speaking of the biomes, I want to talk about them for a second because I think they're really like the big selling point for me personally. I've rarely played a lot of search action games, Metroidvanias, that use this like modern day kind of style. I love that like the weapons are like a baseball bat, a hockey stick. I like that the biomes are places like a school, an aquarium, the city park, an abandoned mall. There's all these like really cool modern day spots in like this ruined megacity that you just get to check out, and they're just really awe-inspiring areas, and the vision here was intentionally very clear. You know, the art style and the level design really goes together. I just really love the biomes, to say the least. The platforming is also really fun, and it has that joy of movement feeling that I always talk about that's so important in Metroidvanias. You can swing, slide, super swim, sky run, and most importantly, sprint right from the beginning with precision and grace. It's very fun to run around. Sometimes I just loved killing enemies and then running around because I could just walk around without them respawning. And speaking of enemies, that's a perfect segue. We're going to go into enemy design. Oh my god, the most abysmal part of this game is the enemy design. This game would have been better if there was nothing on the maps. 3 out of 10. It just kills this whole game. To say that there's less than 10 enemies probably isn't even exaggeration. You see the same enemies at the beginning biome that you are going to see at literally the last final biome of the game. I'm talking like the Torian of the game. Not like the last biome where, you know, like where you get your gravity suit or plasma beam. I'm talking about the last spot in the game. You're going to see the globe, you're going to see the filing cabinet, and you're going to see the traffic cone. Over and over and over. And albeit they'll be in different sizes and colors, however, they're the same exact enemies with the same exact patterns nonetheless. It's a real shame because the concept they have here is that these demons can possess anything. So you could have had a much more diverse roster of enemies to fight. A car would have been great. Man versus car, the Rick and Morty joke. Like, really? Just books and traffic clones and globes and filing cabinets? Really? Like, come on, man. Fax machines? Security cameras? They were cool for like the first 20 minutes, but dude, I come on, man. Truly an opportunity wasted. You had such a good idea with the monsters. Make them take anything. Oh, I'm sorry, you could fight a potted plant too. Oops. The bosses, actually, there were a couple of them with really cool designs. Usually like the main 4 bosses of the games. Usually looks pretty cool. But once I acquired the baseball bat, the fucking Louisville, and I picked up like 2 or 3 health upgrades, I pretty much steamrolled everything on the menu, and I became a parry god because I was so used to the enemy patterns that were from the beginning of the game all the way until the end of the game. So if you're literally not parrying everything by the end of the game, you're probably a scrub. I'm sorry. It must be said. Graphics. 10 out of 10. Okay, this is, again, Heart Machine, when it comes to like the visuals and music, and I'll get to that, they know what they're doing. I think this game is a visual treat. I personally, and this is a bias of my own, I guess, I love 2D art assets against like lush, vivid 3D backgrounds. I'm a fan of this style, and I feel like the team really just had an amazing vision here for Possessors. Some areas they like to pull the camera out and give you this wide shot of the area, and some are really truly awe-inspiring set pieces. I had to take a couple screenshots, probably going to use it for this video. Also, I would love to stop in most of the areas and just observe the backgrounds. Like in the park, you can see in the background the street lamps and all the way down the street and bushes and trees. A lot of times there would be just these various details that deserve your attention, similar to that in the park. And I would just stop, and it would be great to take in this lovely but dreary world. And I also got to shout out that like college campus area where it's like it looks like a college classroom and it kind of ovals in on itself. I thought that was really neat. I don't know, man. I'm a sucker for silly stuff like that. I thought it was all really hype, the graphics and just the world, man. Just a pretty but dreary world. Speaking of things this game does right, let's talk about the mechanics. I gave it a 10 out of 10. The platforming feels really good. Like I said earlier, with the controls, it's super tight. So again, mechanically, you got all sorts of different traversal skills that you unlock, but you start with the sprint, and that's always going to get kudos and a shout out. This is already the second shout out for it. Combat is a bit similar to Smash Brothers, or if you've ever played an indie gem called Valdis Story Abyssal City, it's similar to that. It has like, it doesn't have like the move canceling like Abyssal City, but the combat is just damn good. It's so damn good. It's actually so fun, the kind of variety of combo strings that you can come up with that are fun to use. It's just super unfortunate that the enemies can't bring the heat back at all. The game has this like very strong fundamental base to be something a lot better than what's on display here. And that's not to say what's on display here is inherently awful or bad. It's a middling experience. But the mechanics in play here I feel are one of the game's biggest standouts. Next on here is programming. How does it run? Are there bugs, glitches? I put a 6 out of 10. I heard some people having bigger issues than me on the forums, but I ran into a couple of bugs myself that required restarts. One was an issue where a boss jumped into a wall, completely leaving me out of his attack zone, so I had to restart like 2 or 3 times because of this. Another was when I lost control of Luca after landing from a jumping sprint. It was just the weirdest thing. I just couldn't, the D-pad just wouldn't work. I could still pause the game and I returned to the menu, but I was like, what the hell was that? And then there's some smaller bugs like whip points not disappearing after using them to crumble a wall. I guess you would only know what that means in the game sense, but the point is, like, you would just see, like, this little dot. It's like, what is it still doing there? I already popped the wall. And then there's some issues with how the monsters interact with the environment. And also, I know the game was made on Unreal, so as always, it doesn't feel super optimized. I'd run into frame rate dips in areas with certain weather effects, like from 60 to 40, and I really don't think the Steam Deck should have any issues running this game consistently at 60 FPS. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't really think it should be an issue at all. Programming, 6 out of 10, sorry. Sound effects, okay, another banger of a category, 10 out of 10, and I already said it once, I'll say it again. If there's one category the Heart Machine is gonna deliver, it's on the music, bam. Each song really sets the tone of an area. It nails this ambiance of a cold, deserted, ruined metropolis. The soundtrack is very stylish and even incredibly emotional at times as well. I knew my ears were in for a treat when I first booted up the game and let the beautiful title screen play for a good 5 minutes or so. It was like reuniting with an old friend, especially when the piano hits that one note. If you remember the Hyperlight Drifter OST, you know that one note that I'm talking about. Sound effects are also good. Everything was crunchy, good. I had no issues with it. The kitchen knife sound was shung 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 shung, and then you had the baseball bat, which would bop bat bat, which was nice. That was a lot of fun. I loved cracking people with that fucking Louisville. And yeah, I had no issues with the sound. Like, there was nothing that was like grating to the ears either or anything like that. Now the final category, fun factor. 7 out of 10 times 3, which equals 21. For those of you who don't know. I was always usually kind of having fun with my time in Possessors. One of the issues I've noticed is the slow rate in which you gain chroma, the in-game currency. Even when I had a special charm, so to speak, they call them affixes in this, but I had a certain charm that basically would increase my chroma drops. But even then, chroma was just super hard to come by. I really couldn't experiment with my builds. I had to use like the same couple of weapons the whole game if I didn't want to lose. Like, basically you can upgrade weapons, but you have to pay chroma and a certain item. Now, I had like 29, 30s of these certain items to upgrade the weapons, but I had no money to upgrade anything. And you have to upgrade the weapon to put more affixes into them, which gives you more passive skills and sometimes active skills. So you don't really want to change out your weapons that have like 3 slots already, because it costs about, I think, about 1,750 chroma to fully upgrade a weapon to 3 slots. And 1,750 chroma is not really that easy to come by, trust me. So even by the end of the game, I think I only had 2 things with 3 slots out of 4 items equipped. So that was rough and kind of sucked. So that was definitely a huge issue for me, was that I'm sitting here thinking if I want 100% this game achievement-wise, it's going to be a fucking grind. And I'm not looking forward to that at all. Other things that weren't fun were stores being all over the map. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind if like you have to unlock a shop to get access to certain things, like certain items, but I shouldn't have to run 5-10 minutes halfway across like these rusted dockyards just to get to this shop that's all the way at the end of the map, just so I could buy one data disc that I left because I didn't have the money for it, because you don't drop no fucking chroma, dude. So that was kind of an issue for fun factor. They should have consolidated all the shops into the dark space after you found certain shops. By the way, I don't know if that was a call out to Illusion of Gaia or what, but I respect the dark space as the save point. I loved it. I was like, come on, please be Illusion of Gaia reference. And then, of course, last but not least, I already mentioned it in monster designs, but I have an issue with some bosses. They do this thing where they'll do like a big move and then they get tired so you can hit them. Don't let them get tired. This game was too easy, honestly. It felt silly and made the fights feel a lot less climactic. Even the final boss did this shit. Other than that, though, the game was an enjoyable experience all throughout. It felt a lot more streamlined than your average Metroidvania, similar to something along the lines of Ghost Song or Convergence, the League of Legends story starring Echo, if anyone remembers that. It had this very, like, on-the-path kind of feel. But in my older age, I welcome these more linear types of search action games, but I suppose that just comes down to a matter of taste. For me, it'll make it easier to replay with different weapon setups and builds, which I'd love to experiment with more. But as I said, upgrading is very annoying, so it might make more sense to just replay the game with new builds instead of trying to get everything in one save file. The game really shines when you're exploring the moody and somber environments and moving around like a bionic woman. The great combat mechanics really shine, but it's awful that the enemies are punching bags with no teeth. The only time I really would die in this game is because there would be no invincibility frames after damage, so if a barrage of projectiles hits you, it's game over. But other than that, that was really it. It was the worst on bosses, this issue, because you could be having a really good run, like a hitless run, and then all of a sudden you kind of bop up for a second, and next thing you know, you're dead. It happened to me so many times when I was just like trying to rush right to kill them. I was like, oh, he's only got one hit left. And he'd jump across the map and shoot projectiles, and I was dead. And I was like, fuck! So yeah. All in all, it becomes a 77 out of 100. That's a C+. I bought this game for $13.50 because I got the introductory offer, plus I had the bundle with Bo the Teal Lotus. I already owned the game, so the other portion of the bundle was just to get Possessors. And for $13.50, I would say I got more than my money's worth. I would say $13.50 is excellent price for a 77 out of 100 game, but again, depending on how you spend and what price point you're getting this at, mileage may vary. I would say there are other games you can probably pick up before Possessors, but as a fan of Heart Machine and Alex Preston as a game designer in general, I'm still going to go out and give this a recommendation. The environments and the world alone and the storyline. Oh, speaking of which, bonus category, I'm not going to rank it, but I actually wrote a bit about the storyline, because I really enjoyed the storyline. The universe, the lore, and the world building is incredibly interesting. There's something about this time period and the architecture and the characters that really kept me engaged, which is a surprise because I usually don't care much for storylines in games. However, a lot of the themes resonated with me. Luca's story, however, felt incredibly unfinished. Like a piece of the game was missing or something. Like they actually just didn't finish it. Because I was like, really? That's it? That's how you're going to close that portion of her story out? And again, it's a real shame because I didn't like Luca at first, but by the end, she grew on me to the point that I wanted to see her story finished. And with that, this review is finished. Thank you if you made it this far. Don't forget to hit the like and the sub if you like videos about video games. I do them pretty often, and I try to be as consistent as possible. So until the next review, I'll see you all in the next one, eating the pudding.